did the pledge and then we realized nobody was online, so we checked and a little technical difficulty. So we're in the meeting now.
Are you still having trouble?
So,
Launch meeting, I did it.
okay. Today's agenda is very, very brief. We had on the Rams Head Inn dock application, but our outside counsel couldn't make it today. He has a court date in New York City, so we're going to postpone that till next week. Next week?
Yeah.
24th. Next Tuesday, that'll be on the agenda. That, and then we also, so everything else will be in board member reports. We really don't have an agenda. We have quite a few interviews we're going to do today. So we'll go. So we'll go around the table. Meg?
We have comp plan on the 23rd at 6:30. It's our regularly scheduled committee meeting, so we're going to be discussing the demographic chapter, the growth and change chapter with all the statistics from the census, and we're going to be discussing the economic development chapter. So all the chapters are now up on the website except for the ones that the committee has not done yet. So anything that we've already looked at is available on the website. It's been reorganized and updated, and it's nice and clean and easy to use. You can add your comments on each chapter. There's a link to the button where you can add comments, or you can go to the comments section on the page, or you can email us directly any comments that you have on any of the chapters that we've done to date. Other than that, we have a ZBA meeting tomorrow night. Planning board is tonight. And that's pretty much where I'm at.
Hey, Meg, with the comprehensive plan, are you using the census as verbatim, or didn't it seem like it was kind of screwy?
It was, and we've taken that into account. So with the data, what we're looking for more than hard numbers is trends. Because even the census data is never truly representative of what is happening on the island. The ACH estimates are just that, they're estimates based off of census data and other demographics. So what we're doing is with the data is kind of looking for trends in data. So over the last 20 years, this has been the trend. Or we've noticed certain glitches in the data. These are the reasons why we think these are happening. But we're not necessarily going by it hard and fast, because the census for 2020 showed that we have 3,700 year-round residents, when we know traditionally it's more like 2,600. So we know that that's an abnormal blip in the radar there. So
School demographic.
right, right, and so
Yeah, right, yeah.
yeah, and so we did do like a whole calculation trying to figure out where we would have been had the pandemic not happened, what would have been the appropriate trend line for our population in 2020. And, some of it, like ACH has come up with some other estimates since 2020. So they have some 2021 estimates that they think. So I've kind of pulled some of that information into it just to kind of get a trend to see. And building, we've pulled actual building data, but it's tricky because, it's like counting fish swimming around a barrel.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Okay.
And some of that pandemic movement, some of it is permanent.
Right.
We can't tell you what yet.
Yeah, right.
And so, people have to be a little comfortable with not knowing.
Yeah. Because a lot of people chose to retire during the pandemic. They thought that was a good time to retire and make their moves. And so we did have an increase, I think, in, long-term residents, just because they've retired and changed the way they're doing things. And they've moved out here on a full-time basis.
And also with telecommuting.
Yeah, and telecommuting has had an impact, but I think we can't
call it-
quite tell exactly how much of an impact yet. I think we need 5 years out in order to see if the trend is maintained.
Right.
So we'll see, but
Okay.
it's a tricky one,
We'll know by the number of restaurants that can stay open in the winter.
right?
That'll be our key measurement.
Anything interesting with the planning board or zoning board coming up?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
You have a planning board meeting tonight, organization meeting.
Yeah.
CPA tomorrow.
Yeah, it's just, I think they have 2 applications they're looking at, but
Okay. Jim?
Okay, work sessions.
I wrote you all something over the weekend about having a sense of urgency because we're down to 11 and a half months before 60% of this board leaves. And there's a lot of critical issues that are on the table. And we're kind of getting a little bit of a sense that the work sessions are shorter, executive sessions are longer, and they're legitimate executive session items. They're not something that we're sticking in there because we shouldn't be putting them in there. But I would like to make an effort on the part for the next 11 and a half months. And the way to best do it is to have a monthly calendar. I honestly think that just putting out this week and then next week is not sufficient. I really think you have to forecast minimum 3 to 4 weeks ahead and actually have a calendar set up where you have key items and speakers and presentations from, like we're talking about enforcement for rental properties, building department's got to come in. When did they come in exactly? So give them, you got 2 weeks to prepare, you have 3 weeks to prepare, whatever. Here's the date, probably not going to change. And understand full well, like with today, you can put in, obviously your best intentions were to discuss the Rams Head Inn dock, but, when we find out that the attorney has been called to court, and cannot be here, that obviously has a direct impact on today's, because that would have been a huge discussion item of probably lasting anywhere from a half hour to an hour and a half, but probably better part of an hour with us really discussing the ins and outs of that dock. So I just think that's the way to go. There are too many meat and potato items that are out there that need our attention. I'll give you one right now. We passed around last week about that New York Avenue and the path for the pedestrians and bicycles. Now, how do you want to proceed with that? So I think, it's one of the things I would like everybody to kind of think about, saying, if it's not going to cost the town a heck of a lot of money, which I think Amber, and it was legitimate. We had to prioritize where we were going to spend our money. And there were 5, 6, 7 other projects that were much more urgent than that path. However, if in fact the Heights is willing to pick up their share on their half, we're getting major donations from whether it's Lions Club or somebody else on the other portion of it, it's not going to cost us a lot of money, and we could eventually solve the problem of New York Avenue by getting bicycles and pedestrians off of it. And Brian Sherman's Joe's already done the work. So we have that all put in there. We know exactly where that path would be, how wide it would be, and it's a safety item. So that's just something that we really want to start picking these things off sooner rather than later, because once the summer comes up, there's a lot of other things that happen. This is the time of the year during winter, during early spring, where we can knock these items off, things like that, one at a time.
So Jim, before you move on, in response to your email, I did create a calendar for us to do our internal kind of planning on when we were going to bring things up in meetings. So it's in the SharePoint under agendas, there's a town board calendar. And so you can go and add in topics that you want to make sure get onto the agendas. So we can kind of plan that out and make sure people are notified, like you said, like make sure the building department knows, hey, in 2 weeks, we want to see you for your plan on short-term rentals or whatever it might be.
Okay, so 17th, we did have this work session, this was today, right? But it's not on the agenda though.
No.
No, but so I made that calendar so that.
No, I say, but that.
Start with the 24th.
Yeah, starting with the 24th, because, if we're serious about doing the APRs, then we have to do them. Now it's the time to do them, so. I just think that this is a great tool. Putting it out 3 to 4 weeks, trying to stick to as much as we possibly can. I think that's something.
I think it's a great idea.
All right. I don't want to beat that, but I'm getting a little concerned that.
Time's running out.
Time is running out. And on the other hand, on that same matter about time running out, when I announced that there's 3 of us that are stepping down from the town board, not running again, are prepared to an orientation period, for the new people that are elected in early November, that's 7 weeks to put in some time, additional time, to get people acquainted with the position. We've never, I don't say never because I don't go back that far, but in my tenure of being on here for 8 years, it's never happened. It just never happened. I don't think it has happened, but it's so, but I've gotten a lot of good feedback. I get stopped and say, I was on Channel 22 talking about that. I also think it's positive in terms of people thinking about running for office, that they're not coming in blind, that there are people here that care about the future of the island. And we did our thing, whether it was for 2 years, 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, whatever it is. And now it's time for new people to step up, that we are fully prepared to try to help as much as we possibly can to get these people up to speed. So I think, and for Amber coming back and for Meg coming back, that's something that's important, hopefully, regardless of who sits in these chairs, So that's just a comment. In terms of the PEP meeting, what last week, I go to 2 different meetings. Peconic Estuary Partnership has a management committee, which I'm not on, but I am on because I'm the chairman of the local government. So I run as the local government meetings, which meet 5 times a year. We also meet 5 times a year for the management meetings as well. Being chairman of local government, I have to attend those meetings. So I drove into, I was a little west of Riverhead there last week on the 11th. It's a 2.5-hour meeting. First thing we talked about was the bipartisan infrastructure law and how it impacts PEP. And we talked about funding issues. Joyce Novak, who's the executive director for PEP, made a presentation. I will tell you, because of the amount of money that's out there, they've come upon enough money that they're hiring a full-time grants manager for 4 years. It's got a term of 4 years. It's not going indefinitely, but there's a lot of projects that they have up. I'm talking about dozens and dozens and dozens of projects that require grant funding would help. And I'll give you some illustrations of that. They also hired a full-time outreach assistant for 4 years. That's somebody that's going to also work, with our person that's in that position now. And we also hired a part-time ideas assistant for 2 years. And I'll go through that in just a second. In terms of projects, we went through a bunch of projects, but I'm going to only stick with one. The biggest one of all in the Peconics was the old duck farm in Flanders Bay. It's a 100-acre property that had decades and decades of raising ducks on there. In fact, Long Island was not only known for its potatoes, but it was known for its duck farming and also for duck hunting in terms of feathers and things like that. 25 acres are on tidal wetlands. 8,000 feet are on shorelines of Terry Creek and Broad Cove in Flanders. Eventually, this will be available for recreation. We'll also provide climate change resiliency for wildlife habitat and water quality protection for the part of the Peconic Bay Estuary. So it's a big project. Management plan is, they're developing the management plan as we speak. The Peconic Land Trust paid $11.5 million for this purchase, $500,000 for carrying costs. The farm itself was founded in 1930. It was one of 90 duck farms on eastern Long Island at the peak of duck farming in the 1950s. I grew up at that time. I remember Nassau County even had duck farms down in the Belmore area we used to go down and look at. Governor Rockefeller at that time came out and spent some time there because it was such a historical kind of thing. There's a lot of history attached to it. The granddaughter of Joseph P. Cecil Sr., it was the Cecil family that owned this and that passed it on from generation to generation. There's a lot of historical information that's there. This is a 4-year effort that is being done just on this one project. I will tell you, of the 18 action items that we have going on this year, 16 of them are up and running. And that's counting some of the ones we've already completed. One of the ones that we completed, well, of course, the monitoring station here on Shelter Island at the South Ferry. That was an action item because they're trying to expand the amount of of information they're getting throughout the Peconics, and they wanted to do some monitoring here on Shelter Island. There are several other projects that I'll report on in future months coming that involve Shelter Island waters. There's a term called Environmental Justice Community of Concern. That's the EJCOC. That's defined as a neighborhood or a community composed primarily of persons of color or a substantial portion of persons below the poverty line that is subject to a disproportionate burden of environmental hazards and/or experiences a significant reduced quality of life as a result. I will tell you that the community right around Broad Cove is such a community. And those people are going to directly benefit by the cleaning up of this property and the other monies that are going to go into that area. So government funding, when you look at government funding today, a lot of it is directed in the areas of poverty level areas to include water improvement quality. Joyce then gave a general overview of the budget. Valerie stepped up and she's the outreach person. She gave a presentation. The ideas, that's Sarah Martin. She came out here. You met her down at the South Ferry that day. We're having a project right there at the western part of the Peconics. It's called Reeling In the New Generation Program. It's for family and youth. It's fishing trips, bonding with the estuary, responsible use of resources, fishing tutorials involving Hispanic youth from the Riverhead area. There are two of these things that are up and running, May 20th and June 5th, and there will be a third one in September, a date to be announced soon. It'll be part of a catch and release and a catch and keep discussions. They're going to teach the kids a lot more than just fishing. They're teaching the kids about the respecting of water quality and really trying to get the younger generation in the Riverhead area to appreciate the natural beauty of the Peconic Estuary. So IDEAS stands for inclusion, I, D, diversity, E, equity, and A is anti-racism and systems thinking. That's where they get the acronym IDEAS from. It's all part of a PEP 2023 mini grant that is supporting this. So it's pretty exciting that, what they're doing. We also have 3 monitoring initiatives. We are monitoring horseshoe crabs, river herring and eels, and diamondback turpin turtles as well. So all 3 of those are active programs. If you look at the Riverhead herring program, that looks into the river that runs into the Riverhead area right there, the Peconic River there. And there were a series of dams where fish could no longer spawn because they couldn't get over the obstacles that were there. All those obstacles have been removed through grant monies where fish can now actually move from the Peconic Bay into the river for spawning purposes, which should help, tremendously. All right, my last comments. And we also had a presentation on from Mary Arnold from New York State DEC on the funding finder that I talked about before. It's analogous, by the way, if anybody wants to buy a new pair of shoes and you go online and you tap into something and you say, well, man or woman, size, color, narrow foot, wide foot, anything you look like. So rather than look through 5,000 pair of shoes, you whittle it all down, but more criteria you put into it. The same thing is true with the grants. Mm-hmm. So rather than just sit there and go through hundreds and hundreds of grant opportunities, you plug in the information of what you're looking for, it narrows the search for you, it saves you a lot of time. And so specifically, the more information you have about what the need is for that grant, when you put it into the finder, it will then narrow that focus down and present you the 3, 5, 15, or 20 different possible grant opportunities for that program. Okay, scallops. A devastating decrease in scallop production in the Peconic Estuary for the past 4 years in a row. Currently, there is not only a problem with the adult mature scallops surviving, but with spawning areas as well. That's something that's new in the last year. And it seems to center around four major areas. Number one, unusual high water temperatures, which we recognize. They're not coming down, they're getting warmer. Winters are not as severe, so the waters don't get as cold, and they warm up much faster and for a significant more amount of time. The number two thing is something which I think most people are aware of also, lower levels of dissolved oxygen in the water. That's something we'll be measuring here at South Ferry as well. Number three is disease, named specifically for bay scallops. Can't pronounce it, it's a long, exciting name, but it's a specific disease that attacks bay scallops. And fourth, new predators that have now come into the area that have made, it's the perfect storm. You mix those four things together and you have no consequences of what we've seen in the last 4 years. Changes in water temperature, dissolved oxygen, and pH have the potential to negatively affect the physiology of bay scallops. These changes happen on a variety of timescales. For instance, rapidly increasing water temperatures and warmer water temperatures over time may affect the ability for the bay scallop to tolerate otherwise normal conditions like parasitic occurrence or predation. This underscores the need to conduct high-frequency monitoring of environmental parameters, all of those things that I've just discussed. Therefore, Stony Brook now, their marine and wildlife, they are monitoring on a much, much more frequent basis. Earlier in the season, throughout the entire season, they didn't do that in the past. In the past, they were monitoring just once or twice or 3 times during the course of the year. Now they're out there on a weekly basis, gathering information, so that should help. Note, after reviewing the harmful algae blooms, which is that HAB from 2019, we conclude that HABs were not a cause of the die-off. It was also not a result of the lack of food in the Peconic estuary system, nor was it related to the quantity of oyster aquaculture operations in the Peconics. Those things have been ruled out. The new predator is that cow-nosed rays, which is now becoming more and more common in the Peconics. And obviously, the last thing I have is on eelgrass. Eelgrass provides a nursery habitat for bay scallops and has seen a dramatic decline in 20 years to the tune of over 90-95% decrease. Gone. You know. Juvenile scallop populations were not as severely affected by the die-off of adults originally, but eelgrass habitat decline is not to believe to be a direct factor in this particular event. However, the increasing loss of eelgrass over the past decades may be a contributing factor to scallop survival. This decline has failed to provide nursery habitat to allow for a full and thriving recovery of the bay scallop population. So they're on it. And when you ask me the question, why are we then? Isn't it wasting money by putting more money into something that you know is doomed for failure? I'll give you she's going to give me much more information on this, but her first response was, we've done this, we've had die-off in Peconics before. This is not new, not to the extent that it has now, not 4 years in a row, but they have. The reseeding has helped bring it back. Their biggest fear is by not reseeding at all, that you will totally eliminate bay scallops completely from the Peconic estuary and maybe not be able to bring it back.
Right.
That's number one. Number two is, this is my theory, by putting more of these out there, you are still able to, the scientists are able to collect additional data about what's actually causing the death to these scallops. If you don't have the scallops out there, you have nothing to test and find out. So there are since they have more data coming in and more ability to analyze this stuff, I think that's why they're probably going to move in that direction. But I surely asked the question about Cornell being involved and how much money is being involved and what are towns asked to pay, all those questions. I had a list of questions that I submitted to her at the end of last week, but with the holiday, she hasn't got back to me yet. But as soon as I get that information, I'll share it with you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Jim. Amber?
Community Housing Board met last week, and some of the people that we've interviewed to fill the open spots on the committee were in attendance, which was good. they're definitely interested and hoping to be appointed on the 31st, so we just have to finalize those appointments for the 31st. Some of the items that were discussed, they're going to work on a homeowner's guide to ADUs. They want to set up something that's informational for homeowners to be able to understand what the current process is, but they're also looking to us to get working on to get that a little bit revamped and make it so that there's not inconsistencies within our code that make it easier to build a short-term rental than it is to build a year-round housing unit. The housing plan is, we've gotten the latest draft from the consultants, and that is on the town website, and it's one of the first blue boxes when you look at the town website. So that we'll be able to pick that back up for that public hearing, reconvene that public hearing on the 31st.
Right.
And lastly, one of the things that we had tasked them with was looking at the, they're gonna look at the ADUs, but, trying to work on that piece that they're going to work on in addition to what we do. But then for the town-owned properties, we had asked them to start to make a timeline of, here's this property, here we are right at this time, at this moment in time, what do we have to do to get it to construction? Like, what are all the steps, health department, permits, RFPs, da-da-da. So a local builder was in attendance at the meeting and has offered to help them sort of step through that process.
Okay.
As well as a local engineer, so they're gonna continue working on that. And I think that was it. Did you want to speak to the meeting, the Fred Field meeting? Jerry and I and Stephen and Christina attended and Liz Hanley as well, attended Fred Field's, what did he entitle it? The Housing Fund, Next Steps in Implementation. So he walked us through, we went through a little bit on all of the 4 eastern towns who are working, who voted and passed this 0.5%. Were in attendance. And so it was a little bit history and a little bit where people stood with their housing plans, what projects they were working on, sharing ideas as far as, like, we're thinking of doing this and other towns are thinking of doing this. So it's just more like information sharing. I think one of the important things that I didn't realize was that the tax will not, the 0.5% tax will not take effect until April 1st, and it's for contracts that are entered into and signed April 1st or later. So we will not begin to see any housing fund money, maybe the second quarter of 2023, but it'll be dribbling on because closings will be in that quarter for contracts prior to that date. But the CPF percentages, what thresholds you have to start paying the various taxes did kick in as of January 1st. Did I miss anything?
Oh, good.
So that's all that I have.
You missed a good
Oh,
lunch.
wait, the blood drive, don't forget that. Let me just pull
That's
this up.
Thursday.
It's on Thursday between 12:30 and 6:30. It will be at the Recreation Center. Obviously, the front doors are closed because they're doing work on the reconstruction there, but you can access the building through the ramp at the back.
What are the times again, Amber?
12:30 to 6:30. And appointments are preferred. And actually, where do you call for that? I presume you call Town Hall. Judy's working on that. There's a number on the flyer. If you go to the town website and scroll down to there's a Facebook link and you can see the flyer there. Or you can go to www.nybc, New York, I don't know what it stands for. But walk-ins will be welcome as well. They just want to know how to staff it. So the earlier, more reservations they get, the better.
I meant to see Brian when he walked in before about the signage, because it's not the rec center. It is the community's, the official name of that building across the street is the community center. Recreation center is, it's not the Legion, it's not the recreation center, it's not the youth center, it's a community center. So getting a sign up, getting signage up there, would be, I know he's still waiting on materials to get the front overhang done, but hopefully he's working on that signage and getting that signage up. And so people get used to calling it, and we get used to calling it one thing.
About asking Fred Thiel to get the meta group together for CPF and Now Housing. Even if they met quarterly, the meta group, the group of the groups.
Oh,
We kind of talked about
the
that.
advisory.
Yeah, the advisory board for
Yeah.
both now. I mean, it's going to be separate
Yes.
people involved.
Yeah, we gotta start all
So useful.
working together, yeah.
His comment, because we did ask him about that on
Yeah,
Friday that we were there, give him 2 weeks.
okay,
So he should have more information first in 2 weeks, so
great.
we'll be bugging him.
Yeah, and then also, the applicable town attorneys are gonna be getting together to discuss the issues on implementation.
Great. Good.
So,
Really good.
You're coordinating that, right?
yeah.
That was it.
Yeah,
BJ,
no, I got nothing.
you good?
I'm good.
Steven, do you have anything?
Oh, wait a minute, WQI meeting tomorrow. I won't be able to attend, but if anybody wanted to tune in to talk about the Fresh Pond project.
Yes, yes.
6 p.m., 6 p.m.
Yes, it's normally on Thursday, but because of
Right.
committee people.
And it's an
not
extra
available.
meeting. Yeah.
Yes, it's a second
So what
meeting.
time is it?
6 o'clock.
6 tomorrow now?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, that game tomorrow.
Amber, you have anything for us?
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody in the audience have anything? Anybody in the Zoom audience?
Stella has.
Stella?
Thanks, everybody. I just wanted to confirm that as we start putting some ideas together about New York Avenue, that you bring the heights in earlier rather than later, please. I did receive a call from Elizabeth Galley, I guess on behalf of the Lions Club last week. So, we talked about, I think you mentioned earlier that Joe has some, he's done a lot of work, whether it's Joe and or Brian, but, please bring us in, as about half of that stretch is ours. Thanks.
Yep, we're on it, Stella.
Stella, while you're on there, we have the drawings and everything, the exact layout for that. I do agree with you. If we could make like a morning or an afternoon available for two things, New York Avenue and moving the Heights Treatment Plant project forward a little bit, involves the same people. Maybe we can knock off both things, in one breath there.
Yeah, count me in. I mean, I consider the ball in your court, so just give me some dates and we're off to the races.
Okay. In preparation for that meeting, Stella, just parameters on the inclusion of Bridge Street. If you could shoot that, just be prepared that we're interested in, obviously, and we've all discussed this. It's been public knowledge that we're repivoting that project. Anything you can have beforehand to kind of give, and we'll share any information that we have on our end. But that I think the thrust of what we need to examine is Bridge Street, how we move forward there, what has to be done to get that project moving again.
Yeah, I mean, I've submitted that to you a few times. I'd be happy to do it again. So
Okay.
just let me know if you can't find it in your inbox. I'll be happy to send it along.
Okay, all right.
Thanks, Stella.
Thanks, everyone.
Pam?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I just have really one question. I had sent an email to the town liaisons for the planning board meeting tonight about the documents for the town wetlands code update. There are no documents posted, and it was already discussed in public hearing at the planning board meeting the last time they got together, and I'd like to see those documents before they go over it again. And I also want to know, is that meeting going to be allowed to be held if there's no clerk to take the minutes?
The chairperson has agreed to take the minutes. Because the recommendation was initially to cancel the meeting, but because it's their organizational meeting, Ian wanted to have that meeting, so. And they are a separate.
Okay, but on their agenda, okay, but also on their agenda, they do have this town code wetlands code update, and it's already been discussed, and I was confused the first time they discussed it because the document wasn't posted. I'd like to be on the same page with the discussion this evening.
Not on their agenda, is it?
It's our understanding it's not on the agenda. And if
My
it
understanding it was this morning, Mr. Kiley.
we'll pull it up right now, Pam.
I'm looking at it. I don't see it on the agenda.
So if it's not on there, there's no obligation to post it.
I
not
understand
discussing
that, but
it.
it was on the agenda this morning. It was on the agenda this morning.
They're looking at it right now. I looked at it this morning, wasn't on there.
Come on.
But
I'm not
Guys,
seeing
I'm not
it.
making things up here. Come on.
Okay,
I don't know what's
well,
happening then. Things are on the agenda and then they're off the agenda less than 24 hours prior to the meeting. We're flipping the agenda now.
Did somebody
I know you
amend
can.
it, Christine, that we know of?
Yeah, they are independent board and this board
I
doesn't
was,
decide.
I was just about to say that.
Right.
I was gonna say,
I don't know
we
what they
can't
do.
tell them what to do. I was gonna suggest you have to bring it up at the meeting tonight because they are an independent board and we are not, we cannot,
We don't adjust or change or touch their agenda.
yeah.
So then it's not on the agenda for this evening.
I do not see it on the current agenda on the website for this evening.
Do you know if they can put it on the agenda within the next 4 hours? 5 hours prior to the meeting? Change it again?
Unlikely.
Because if they do, I really want to see the document.
It's something, you'll have to ask Ian tonight, because he
If this
circulated.
document would, let me put it this way, if this document was already discussed in a public hearing meeting, then it should be available to the public. And it was already discussed in a public meeting. So either way, whether it's on their agenda or not, it should be on the town website and available for public review. That's really my point.
all right, so reach out to Ian. They have their own attorney and ask that question.
We don't
Okay,
have
well,
control
then-
over planning board's agenda or what they choose to post. They're independent.
It would be good to get an answer from them, Pam.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm just saying the town has a responsibility to keep the public aware of the documents that are being discussed at these committees and everything. They are posted on the website. So I don't know why this one's any different.
You're not enforcement body.
Right, okay.
Okay.
I will
Right,
thanks, Pam.
check with Ian
We'll
later.
we'll
Thank
bring
you.
that discussion up tonight, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience? Okay, I'm going to make a motion. We go into executive session for interviews, contract negotiations, and employment history. Employee.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. So moved. Thanks, everybody.